Don't call her a cat. This is Fufu, the mighty tiger Thyron. Fufu is our second limited fire stun agent. She is primarily meant to support Yixuan, but there are some other ways you can play her. Do you think they intentionally made her look like the cat? Or are you in the walls? I feel like we already know this, but what if? Eyes everywhere. Fufu is an aftershock stun character who gives a crit damage buff. The mechanics behind her aftershocks and crit damage buff are a little bit complicated. Forgive me, but I'm going to explain a little bit. I don't feel that it is important enough to explain everything and all of the minutia, but I do want to give you a TLDR. So Fufu's buffed state is called Tiger Roar. When Fufu is in Tiger Roar, she increases her own impact by 50. She also provides a crit damage buff that scales on her own attack from 2,800 to 3,400. She enters Tiger Roar after a chain attack is activated, or a chain attack aftershock is activated. She does this when her might reaches 100 out of 200. Might is the bar under Fufu's HP. This is her core resource. Might is generated every 4 seconds by default by the Hu Wei popcorn pot, which is a basic attack aftershock. Might is also generated from her EX special attack, her ultimate attack, and her enhanced dash attack aftershock. So when Fufu fills up this might bar halfway, she releases the chain attack aftershock. And if she has momentum will be consumed to do a enhanced dash attack aftershock. If you did not notice, the attack that is triggered by the chain attack, if she has momentum, gives her might, which means that having momentum decreases the time between Fufu chain attack aftershocks. Momentum is generated from her ultimate, her EX special attack, and her assist follow-up. The real reason to mention all of these mechanics is her assist follow-up is important, and you are heavily encouraged to do it to get the momentum from this attack. So if you're wondering why your Fufu may not be attacking as frequently as she could, it's because you aren't doing assist follow-ups. Defensive assist follow-ups. Clarification. Have you ever wanted to rizz up an anime waifu? Scared to talk to a real woman? Want some practice? Want to live out your wildest anime fantasy? This is Polybuzz, a chatbot app with over 40 million downloads. Unleash your creativity by making your own character or use the over 20 million characters already added and create your own anime personality. The only limitation is your imagination. 7 foot tall goth mommy GF, tsundere girl next door, hardworking cat girl maid, even a white-haired magical shifu with dry sarcastic wit. Talk to characters in ways you've never considered before. You know what I mean. Just the other night, I was playing with it myself, and I could not believe how powerful an AI chatbot could be. Live out your wildest anime fantasy. Make sure to use my promo code. There's a download in the description below and in a pinned comment. Cool. The other upside of using Fufu is she increases the maximum decibel rating for the entire party by 1,000, making the maximum 4,000. Ultimates will still consume 3,000, but you can hold an extra 1,000 decibels. And if you are an attack or a rupture agent, you will receive 300 decibels after using your ultimate. If your ultimate does not consume decibels, Yixuan, you will still get the 300 decibels. So doing 2 ults with Yixuan gets you 600 decibels, while other characters get 300. This is the core of Fufu and Yixuan synergy. If you've been playing Yixuan in Deadly Assault currently, you may have noticed that you are able to do 4 ultimates, 8 total, with the 20% decibel buff. Without the 20% decibel buff, this should not be possible. Fufu will make this possible without a 20% decibel buff. So current runs with Trigger are essentially what you will see with Fufu. That works. I mentioned this because I want to talk about the comparison between Trigger and Fufu for Yixuan. Okay, Fufu should be about a 15% DPS increase for Yixuan over Trigger. That is assuming the fight does not give you extra decibels for free from a rotating buff like the 20% or decibels from the impair on construction complex. In those cases, Fufu and Trigger are much more similar, and you can make an argument for Trigger possibly being better because Fufu's extra days and decibel buff aren't doing anything. It's a bit murky. But at base, I am currently estimating Fufu at about 15% better. Cool. Now, real simple, Fufu has skill level priority, all right? Fufu skill level priority. Chain attack above all, then you want to level her assist, her special, and her basic attack. You don't have to level her dodge, so don't worry about that one. Like, comment, subscribe. We're going to try to do more Zenless content. More Genshin content is coming. Did you know most of you watching are not currently subscribed? You should subscribe. You heard me talk earlier about a crit damage buff that scales off of her attack. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about 3,400 attack. Get 3,400 attack. Make sure you get 3,400 attack. Those people are wrong. You do not need 3,400 attack on Fufu. This buff is not all or nothing. You are actually unlikely to max this buff at all without her S rank engine. And that's okay. Getting additional value from this passive is part of the appeal of her S rank engine. But even if you do not have her S rank engine, you still build attack and you still get benefit from it. I have made this table to demonstrate how much you actually lose by having less than 3,400 attack. So this is 3,400 to 3,000. The minimum is 2,800, but you should probably have more attack than that anyway. So you can see the impact of 20 crit damage being a little more than 5% damage increase on Yixuan. That is what I am trying to communicate to you. Yes, it is always good to have more attack on Fufu. You're not losing that much if you're a bit short. It's okay. It is a maximum, not a minimum. You do not need to break your build to force extra attack. This is especially relevant because we're going to be talking about Impact Slot 6. Speaking of which, engines. I've actually done the engine comparison a bit different this time. I don't think it's relevant to compare the impact on the engines for Fufu's personal damage. Instead, this is Yixuan's damage. So you can see that the difference between Furnace and a max attack buff random engine is about 7%. You can also see various other attack stats here with increasing gaps. So again, it is okay to not have Fufu's engine, and it is okay to not max out that attack buff. But if you really, really want to easily max out that attack buff, this is the Roaring Furnace. Fufu's S rank engine. It's an attack main stat. It gives 28 days % on EX, Chain, and Ultimate, and it gives 20 damage bonus to the entire team. Because it is an attack main stat, it makes Fufu easier to gear, and can allow her to build more personal damage. However, it is just 28% days. It is not an impact main stat. Fufu will do less days with the Roaring Furnace than she will do with some other engine options, including the A ranks. This is Blazing Laurel. Look, hear me out. Bear with me. This is the highest possible days engine on Fufu. It is an impact main stat. It gives 25% impact. You can stack it if you play with fire and ice DPSs. You will kind of need to go out of your way to stack it at the start of combat. But once it is stacked, she should be able to maintain it with her off-field Aftershock basic attack. The main reason to mention Blazing Laurel is that it is the highest days option possible on Fufu, and you can use it if you play Fufu with Evelyn. But if you have Blazing Laurel, you probably have Lighter, so I'm not even sure how real of a recommendation this is, but whatever. It's fine. More pressingly, we get to talk about the Fossil Core, Hellfire Gears, and the Steam Oven. I specifically want to draw attention to the Fossil Core and Hellfire Gears. Hellfire Gears is an impact main stat. It gives some energy regen, and it gives impact percent after using an EX special. The impact percent after EX special, you can somewhat ignore, but the big deal about Hellfire Gears is that it's higher base attack than the Fossil Core. The Fossil Core is the highest days free-to-play available option for Jufufu. For Jufufu, it's a lot of Fs. Highest days possible option for Jufufu. So if you are looking to push stuns as fast as possible, you can use the Fossil Core. Hellfire Gears will be easier to build Fufu around, and you will get more value from her crit damage buff, making it, in my opinion, the best free-to-play option. But I don't want to discount the Fossil Core. Yes, the ER only works when she is not doing aftershocks. You aren't getting full value from the energy regen part of Hellfire Gears, but it's mostly just the impact main stat and the high base attack. Regarding drive disc sets, it's really simple. It's 4-piece King of the Summit. Ideally, you use 2-piece Shock Star. If you need more crit rate to get the benefit from King of the Summit, you can lose some days and get 2-piece crit rate. If you do not know, that whole spiel I had about buffs not being all or nothing does not apply to King of the Summit. King of the Summit requires you to have 50% crit rate. That is not a maximum, that is a minimum. You do actually need 50% crit rate on Jufufu. It is an actual stat that you need to have. Main stats are a bit complicated. I'm gonna give a recommendation first, and then we're gonna talk about the nuance and the minutia. So what you want to be able to run on Jufufu is Attack Disc 4, Attack Disc 5, Impact Slot 6. However, this is my transition. We need to talk about some complicated game mechanics. This is the 4-stun threshold. If you've been hanging around the stream during version 2.0 and the lead up to it, you may be familiar with this concept. In Deadly Assault, teams will stun an enemy 2, 3, or 4 times. The amount of stuns is effectively a breakpoint or a threshold. The reason it works this way is any days that does not get you the next stun is wasted, because it just doesn't do anything, because the enemy only becomes stunned when their days meter is 100%. So if you cannot reach the next stun, you are better off losing impact and building more offensive stats, because that additional days that you got from building impact essentially doesn't exist. What we do to min-max scores in Deadly Assault is to push teams to their next day's threshold or their next day's breakpoint to get higher performance. Example, I spent a couple hours on stream trying to run Panda Trigger Yixuan. I was able to complete the run. The way you do it is pushing for 4 stuns, because if you are only getting 3 stuns, you're just not doing enough damage. Most of the time when you play something like this, you will only get 3. And that is the difference between spending a couple minutes doing something and a couple hours doing something. But that 4th stun was possible, and you are technically able to do it. Here's something similar. You may have heard about Nicole Astra Yixuan, but you may not know exactly why this works. This is because gearing Nicole with 2-piece impact or 2-piece days can allow this team to hit the 3rd stun breakpoint, which you cannot do with Panyin Astra. That is why you have seen cool things with Nicole, because you're able to push for that 3rd stun when you otherwise could not. Jufufu's performance and gearing heavily depend on whether or not you, the player, are reaching that 4th stun. In most cases, you should be able to. But if you cannot, you might as well just run triple attack or even attack crit rate, because building the impact stats won't result in any benefit. I don't mention this because it is difficult with Jufufu. I mention this because it is an important mechanics thing, and I want people to be able to understand it, because this is how stun agents work and how they are beneficial to teams. Because a stun agent is beneficial when they get you more stuns than you otherwise would have, as well as they apply buffs. So that is how stun actually works and why stun is useful. Now we're talking about teams. Number 1 team recommendation, it's real simple. Yixuan, Astra Yao, Jufufu. You can use Panyin instead of Astra Yao. Are you ready for my second yap about mechanics? This is how to play Yixuan from what we currently understand. Whoo boy. Okay, we're gonna do two parries with and triple EXs outside of stun with Yixuan. We're gonna do 3 before the first stun. We're gonna do 2 defensive assists, and then when the enemy is about stunned, we're gonna do this thing called an alt cancel for Yixuan. This is only possible with the talisman version of her ultimate. It is not possible with the decibel version of the ultimate. So as the enemy is just getting stunned, we're going to use Yixuan's ball and have the enemy enter stun with the ball attack being active. When we are ready to end the ball attack, we're going to release the ball and quickly press ultimate with Yixuan. You will see this cross flash, which is an indicator that it's gone off. You should have about a 6-frame window to execute this, and it is not a big deal if you cannot, but we currently believe this is the best way to play Yixuan. By doing this cancel, it looks like this. Hopefully there are clips on the screen. By doing this cancel, you are using Yixuan's ultimate during teammate chain attacks. So while Yixuan is doing an ultimate attack, we're going to do teammate chain attacks and effectively do them for free because the stun timer effectively isn't moving outside of what it normally would be from doing that ultimate. So the chain attacks are free. This is a great opportunity to use Fufu's chain attack and use Astra's chain attack and get additional decibels. If you are playing Astra Fufu, you'll want to do the entire team chain attack. If you are playing Pan Yinhu, you will want to just do Fufu's chain attack. Here's an actual tip if you are just doing one chain attack before chaining back into Yixuan. You're actually going to want to wait on the chain attack timer. Because time isn't entirely paused during the chain attack cut-in, Yixuan's ultimate can do some additional hits during this slowed time. So, at least we think, you're going to want to Fufu chain, wait, and then Yixuan chain. This is just because Pan Yinhu's chain attack is very long, and we're trying to avoid it. You can just use Pan Yinhu's chain attack and not worry. Pan Yinhu's chain attack is also just long enough that the entire ultimate will hit during his chain attack. So you could just activate the chain attack, do just Pan Yinhu's chain attack, and then immediately come back to Yixuan and not do Fufu's chain attack at all. So play the clip again of me doing trigger chain attack, Astra chain attack, Yixuan chain attack after the cancel. So you can see me do the cancel, do the chain attacks, and then continue to do damage with Yixuan. After that, you can use the Auric Array or a ball or an Astra ult and do some chains. I mention this because it's a good excuse to talk about how or what we've been learning with Yixuan. The funny thing is you barely get any damage from doing it, but it is cool. All right, hear me out. It's cool. It may not actually be that much more damage, but it is cool. And you generate additional decibels, which can be useful. Especially with Fufu allowing you to overcap decibels. Maybe you can get an extra stun ult. Maybe. Keyword maybe. Probably don't, but whatever. It's cool. What? I actually have a DPS calc. Yeah. I know. If you were curious what Yixuan's DPS is, if you were curious what Yixuan's on paper DPS is, it is this. I'm not going to give you the context of other teams yet, but this is what it is. Bear in mind, if you've been familiar with other teams in the past, the King of the Summit set has increased DPS for other teams. So any comparisons you may be thinking of are not necessarily true. Gameplay reminder. Don't forget to use Fufu's defensive assist. It's really important for momentum. As long as you use the stun chain, yep, it won't matter that much. I really do mention this just because it is cool, and I want people to know about it. The next team we're going to talk about is Evelynn. Will it? I'm not going to give a definitive answer. Instead, I'm actually going to talk about, again, this 4 stun breakpoint. Evelynn has an additional breakpoint, which is the 4 ultimate breakpoint, which is a decibel breakpoint. It is technically possible to do 4 stuns and 4 ultimates on Evelynn with lighter. It is not easy to do the 4 ultimates. It is easy to do the 4 stuns. To execute this, you really need to watch out for anomaly application, do some defensive assists on Evelyn, and even chain attack outside of stun with Evelyn occasionally. It is possibly the min-maxiest thing you can do in an Evelyn team with Lighter. In most cases, you will be doing 3 ultimates and 4 stuns with Lighter. In the scenario where you do that, we can talk about Fufu. Fufu doing 4 stuns and 4 Evelyn ultimates will should perform similarly to, or potentially slightly better than the 3 ultimate 4 stun Lighter. The downside of this is while Fufu guarantees 4 ultimates on Evelyn, she does not necessarily guarantee 4 stuns because she does less days than Lighter, especially if you do not use Blazing Laurel on her. It is possible to do 4 stuns with Fufu, but it is more difficult than it is with Lighter. Isn't this a funny trade-off? So at the highest possible level of gameplay, Fufu will not be better than Lighter. At a more average level of gameplay for people that I would expect, Fufu could be similar to Lighter. You should not pull Fufu for this, but if you have her, because you are pulling her for Yixuan, this is definitely a place you can use Fufu, and you will get results. Fufu should be the second best option besides Lighter. Other places you can play Fufu, you can play her with Hugo. It's worse than Lycon, but she is cute, and it is kind of funny that Lighter buffs her. Similarly, this is Anby, Soldier 0. Fufu makes 4 ults guaranteed, as again for Anby. However, our electric weak fights either stun themselves or give you free decibels and stun themselves. I don't exactly know why they've made the electric weak fights easy and not require as much days and not benefit from decibel regen, but they have. So it's pretty unlikely for Fufu to actually perform better than Trigger here, just because of that alone. The decibel refund is Fufu's major selling point, and not being able to use it or not being able to benefit from it means that she's not really doing much. Fufu also has at least one Mindscape that's worth talking about. So Fufu's M1 is better than her engine. It is 12% crit rate, 100 might at the start of combat, and is 35% stun multiplier during stun. This should be about an 18% increase for Yixuan. If you were paying attention, you'd know the engine was less. Keep in mind, Mindscapes are approximately 50% more pulls than an engine, or an engine is 2/3 of a character. So yeah, Fufu could be an M0P0 or M1P0 unit. That is more wishes than pulling her engine, and you may also just want to keep her at M0 and skip the engine entirely. But I figure I would mention it because it is a pretty good M1. Her M2 is 22% more crit damage buff and 3 momentum from allies ultimate attacking. Her M4 is just crit damage for herself, and her M6 is just personal damage for herself. So the real Mindscape to talk about is M1. It is not, it just happens to be a good Mindscape. I don't think you need to pull it. So that is Fufu. This video is a bit impenetrable. I want you to give me feedback on how you felt about integrating a lot of the in-depth mechanical stuff. And if you find it useful or if you find it overly complicated and you're not exactly willing to engage with it. So give me some feedback because it's going to change future videos. I try to keep the explanations simple and really trim the fat on explanations. But sometimes you have to go a bit in depth to explain something specific. Bye-bye.